Let me guess. You wish there were more good deals out there to buy. Let me guess. You're secretly, or openly, wishing for the next recession to come so prices come down. Now, let me tell you something. Most people I talk to, new and seasoned, small and large, literally all say the same thing. They complain, everything is overpriced, and I can't wait for the next recession so I can buy things at more reasonable prices. Here's my question for you. If I talk to a lot of people across a wide range of experience, and they all think the market is overpriced, and they all can't wait for the next recession, what does that tell you? What that tells you is, assuming these folks all don't quit, they're all going to be around during that next recession. And prices may not actually come down the way you want them to, as demand will still be there. On this episode, I'm going to reveal what I do to find diamonds in the rough.
Warning. This podcast features the truth about owning and operating mobile home parks. The following program is not designed to be sexy. It will not hype you up on MHPs. Rather, this is a raw take on this industry and how you find your own path to success. Welcome to MHP IRL, Mobile Home Parks in Real Life, with your host, Ryan Norris.
Last episode, I revealed game-changing knowledge I wish I had when I started, which was that I was overlooking good deals because I didn't have the skill, knowledge, or experience to see something right in front of my face. On this episode, I'm going to add some depth to that, and I'm going to walk you through how to apply your end game to lead generation. Chapter 1, do the math. My database currently has about 1,400 entries. Let's assume an average phone call takes only a minute long to call, ring, and leave a message. That's almost 24 hours start to finish if I called each one, and that's not including the times I actually get someone on the phone. Let's dive deeper. If you get a hold of someone, one of these cliche mom and pop owners, they typically like to talk a lot. So don't be surprised if a quick phone call lasts over 20 minutes. You should be using some form of CRM so you can keep track of your calls. That also takes time to set up and document. A lot of people have multiple phone numbers. A lot of people will say nasty things to you. Realistically, if I was to make an effort to call each person in my database, I think a fair assumption is an average of 5 minutes per person with tons of variability. In other words, it would take me 5 days from start to finish to call everyone. Most people don't call back. If I was to shoot from the hip, I'd say maybe 5% people call back on the voice messages that you leave, and that's overly optimistic. Even with a clever voice message. I've tried many a combination of voice messages in my years of sales. But I'm not going to work for 5 days straight with no breaks or sleeping. In fact, I'm probably not going to be motivated to deal with the grind of cold calling for much more than an hour at a time. Realistically, you're looking at 3 to 7 hours a week. To keep the math simple, let's say you crank out 5 hours of cold calls a week. 5 days times 24 hours is 120 hours of cold calling, or 24 weeks. At that pace, you'd be hitting everyone in your database, if you had a database the size of mine, only 2 or 3 times a year. Y'all, that's not enough. So why not just outsource this? It's my opinion, but I believe outsourcing cold calls is a waste of your money. First off, I'm an experienced salesman with 5 properties that I can speak to in detail with confidence if questioned by the seller. And sellers will test you a lot. Do you think a $3 an hour person from a foreign country calling on your behalf is going to be greeted warmly by a baby boomer mom and pop owner? Let's say they even get that far. Do you think they'll have the skills to convince them to sell to you for a reasonable price in a timely manner and not to everyone else calling them? Even if they're just trained to say, "If you are interested in selling your park, may I connect you with a potential buyer?" You're still just going to get delusional sellers. You can't outsource rapport building, or at least not for an affordable price. Owners get bombarded. Good brokers spend mega hours cold calling. Think about that. You're not only competing with other potential buyers, but you're also competing with brokers who, from an owner's standpoint, are often more in line with their incentives than you are. You want to buy their property as cheaply as possible. They want to sell their property for as high as possible. A broker wants the largest commission, which is obtained by the highest selling price. There is no substitute for putting on your selling shoes and calling yourself. Then you need to be ready for the onslaught of constant rejection. Here's the punchline. Whether you send mailers, cold call, or some combination of the two, you must find a way to interact with the owner yourself, and a lot. Otherwise, you'll get drowned out in the constant noise these owners are subjected to. I'll reference my first episode. If your end game is on point, you'll know which properties you'll want to buy. Think about it like this. If I focused on only 20% of my database, my contact rate of about 2 or 3 times a year would increase to once every other month or so. In other words, if I was to laser focus rather than shotgun, I would be much more efficient with my time and efforts. If you aren't full-time in mobile home parks, but you want to be, you need to be smart with your time. Do the math. Time is precious. Use it wisely. Chapter 2, be different. Let's look at this through the lens of my nearly 10-year-old Honda. I am not in the market to sell my Honda. It has just over 100,000 miles. It's paid in full. I enjoy it, so I don't need to sell it. If someone called me out of nowhere asking if it was for sale or if I had any interest in selling, I'd tell them the truth. I'm not. Then if they asked me to consider selling to them when the time was right, I'd say, "Oh yeah, sure, why not?" And then I'd forget about them forever. If someone mailed me something, I would throw it right in the trash without calling back. If someone told me they were a family business looking to buy Hondas in my area, I'd say, "That sounds really nice, but no thanks." If someone said they were looking for my specific make, model, year, color, and in my area, and to buy from them for a compelling, differentiated cause, I'd be impressed. Probably a little creeped out too, but I'd consider speaking with them. Even then, if they were even able to convince me to entertain accepting an offer to sell, I would absolutely not be a seller at a reasonable price. Think about it. My car would go for less than 10 grand, and a reasonable new car would cost way more than that. It just wouldn't make any sense. But eventually, I will sell my car. Eventually, I will be reasonable on my price. Eventually, there will be a time when a cold call or a mailer, timed properly, may influence my decision. You just have to be there when that window of opportunity opens. The difference between a 0% chance and a 20% chance is monumental. Even the difference between a 0% chance and a 1% chance is game-changing because now you're in the running. But with no rapport building and limited touches, these sellers will forget about you. And worse, they have no loyalty to you. And even if they did, people are brutally self-interested. So don't think, oh yeah, I'll call you when it's time for me to sell, is anything more than just a pleasant way for these sellers to get you off the phone. Here's the reality. Everyone has a database. Everyone is mailing. Everyone has the same message. How are you different? I'll reference my episode 1 again. End game. Figure out what it is that you really want. Be extremely specific. Then assess if you're actually chasing that, and if not, adjust accordingly. So, give yourself a chance. Be different. Chapter 3. Meet everyone. This industry's small. Operators like myself have specific deal criteria. When I pass on something, I like to connect the broker or owner with someone I think might be interested in the deal. Wouldn't you like a phone call from me with a potential deal opportunity? I'm not the only one who does this. There are countless other reasons why you should be networking constantly and trying to add more value than you take back from others. Moreover, brokers are a strong source of solid leads. You're going to want to meet as many of them as you can. And like Sam Klein said in his episode, you're going to want to stand out in their minds, otherwise they'll forget you even exist. Seriously, most brokers have email lists in the hundreds. You need to differentiate. You need to get your name out there. You need to meet everyone. Chapter 4. The grind. Let's talk marathon running. If you actually wanted to run a marathon, you'd look for the coach that said things like, you need to eat right, strategize up front, and run. In fact, if you're starting out completely cold turkey, we may not even have you run for more than 5 miles at a time for several weeks. This will take months, if not years, will require lots of sacrifice, and will be very difficult. And that's if you're even able to pull it off at all. Juxtapose that coach with the one you'd likely reject immediately, which I would imagine would say something along the lines of, come run marathons! They'll make all your dreams come true. You'll feel great. You'll be in shape. And best of all, I have insider information that will help you go from 0 to 26 in no time flat. Listen to my free advice. I'll talk for free about stretching, what to wear, and best smoothie recipes. Oh, and by the way, I sell my own shoes and have a training class. So why is it that the coach selling vegetables and hard work wins out in your mind over the one selling hype and omitting the work? It's because marathons are branded as hard work. You know up front it's going to be tough. Mobile home parks have been branded as easy, coupon-clipping passive investments that nobody has heard of. I'm the marathon coach you'd hire. My podcast has essentially been vegetables and sacrifice. If you want mobile home parks, I'll get you there, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You're going to work. You're going to sacrifice, and it may not work out. The mobile home park grind. Ian and I started in July of 2015 and didn't close on our first deal until September of 2016. We were two young, hungry, wannabe entrepreneurs with big dreams, way too much time in our hands, and the skill set to sell. We worked and worked and worked for over a year. Then, in time, we got lucky. Larry Bird used to say, the harder I work, the luckier I get. We essentially had part-time, zero compensation, second jobs for over a year. How long are you willing to wait for your first deal? How much time are you willing to take away from your family to find reasonably priced deals? Would you continue going forward if, with time, money, and sacrifice, there was still no guarantee of success? Your mind will be one of your biggest obstacles because at times, it'll convince you you want to quit. Do you have the grit to fight through that? I speak with a lot of newbies, and I'd say there are generally two buckets you can put most first-time buyers in. The passive income seekers group, and then the true entrepreneurs group. Like my marathon example earlier, when an industry is branded the way mobile home parks have been, you're going to get a lot of the get rich quick, quit your job, 4-hour work week types. You need to seriously ask yourself which of the two buckets you fall into. Let me give you 2 examples: the flat line and the cartwheel. I've spoken to more than one person who said they want to get into mobile home parks to have passive income streams so they can quit their jobs and pursue their dreams. When I ask what their dreams are, they're uber passionate. When I ask about mobile home parks, they sound like a heart monitor flatlining. You know, beep, beep, beep. I've called these people out before. Some admit that yes, they really aren't passionate about mobile home parks. Others get immediately defensive. Those conversations must be similar to what my parents went through, trying to convince me my ex-girlfriend wasn't right for me. Yeah, not happening. And young Ryan is going to do everything possible to show his parents they're wrong and he's right. You can probably guess how that one ended. The middle ground neither confirms nor denies and just pushes the thought process off until later. But really, that's just as bad as getting defensive because they'll probably never revisit. And honestly, it's easier that way because you don't have to think about difficult things or challenge your assumptions or risk being completely wrong. The other example is the cartwheel. A few weeks ago, a listener called me ecstatic about how he just closed his first deal and the first rent checks just cleared the bank and how he was never been this excited in a professional sense. I felt like he called me in the middle of him doing a cartwheel. I loved that call. I hope I can help more people find that type of joy. I found that type of joy. It's incredible. Which are you? Are you the cartwheel or are you the flatline? I traded a job for a job. So if you're a flatline or really any sort of middle ground, you could be headed for a serious nightmare. I'll end with a quick story about how I met my wife. We were cartwheels for each other instantly. At the end of our first date, we were already talking about our second date. By our second, we were talking about our third and our fourth. The more we got to know each other, the more we fell in love. And that's true even today, years after we got married. The stars aligned. Everything just made sense. Contrast that experience with dating other women, which you can really put into 2 buckets: the quick out and the slow and painful. The quick outs were like ripping off a Band-Aid. There's no talk of a second date on the first date, or there's a lot of mixed signals and time wasted trying to sort out what she meant by this, or what did she mean when she said that. There's a lot of uncertainty, but ultimately you'd realize within a few days or a few weeks that y'all aren't good for each other, and you part ways with a short-term sting at worst. But the worst were those slow and painful relationships, where there was enough of a spark to keep things interesting, but not enough bad up front to prevent you from pursuing. You know, the relationships where you go, oh wow, she's so pretty, or she's so this, or she's so that, and your fixation with her positive attributes blind you to the not so great. And your friends see it, and your family sees it, but you keep on doubling down until you can't anymore. Or worse, you blind yourself so badly that your friends and family don't see it, and you cruise on, ignoring or downplaying serious signs by saying things like, we'll just work through it, or she'll change, until it gets too overwhelming, and then boom, nasty break. Yeah, no fun. With my wife, I just knew. It wasn't complicated. There weren't mixed signals. The flashy was backed by substance, and the more I learned, the more I fell in love, and that's still true today. And the same exact thing goes for mobile home parks. Like with my wife, the stars aligned. The more I learn, the more I love. I've found something that's a good fit. I don't have to ignore. I don't have to dodge. I don't have to delude myself into pushing forward when times get tough. I'm just naturally motivated to do it. What my wife said in her interview in episode 2 was that marriage works only if you want it to work, because you'll have that natural motivation to find a way to make it work. The same applies to mobile home parks. There's a lot of crap you have to deal with, but that underlying love for the industry pushes you through it. If that underlying love isn't there, or worse, that love was actually just infatuation that wears off, you'll be left with just a pile of crap. You have to avoid the temptation to ignore or dodge these tough questions. Are the stars aligning for you? Or are they sending you mixed signals? Are you in for a happy, fulfilling marriage? Or are you infatuated and don't want to admit you're on the course for a really nasty breakup? It all comes down to this. Do you have the excitement to get through the bad? Are you confident you'll be calling me mid-cartwheel? If so, I can't wait for that call, because words can't express how happy that call made me. But if not, it's okay. Imagine if you knew up front that an ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend was going to be exactly that. Sure, your guttural reaction would probably be something like, well, I'd turn around and run away, or I'd tell him to take a hike. But truly what you do is enjoy them for who they are and not delude yourself into thinking they're someone they aren't, or could be someone that they truly can't be. Regardless of what you ultimately discover about yourself and decide, for you to be successful, be it with a spouse or a career, you will make sacrifices. You will face difficult times, and things still may not pan out the way you want them to. But if you love it, you'll find a way. And in this difficult time to find mobile home park deals, if you truly love this industry, you'll naturally find the motivation to keep pushing. Don't give up, lovebirds. Would having my due diligence list help you? If so, I will let you have it for free. That's right. My list that took me 3 years to develop and includes plenty of fixes for mistakes that I made that now you can avoid. All absolutely free. All I ask for in exchange is leave me a 5-star review and a comment. Screenshot your comment after it goes live and email it to me at my website, archimedesgrp.com. Afterwards, let's connect. This episode was inspired by a listener just like you. Even if you don't have any ideas for future episodes, let's still connect, as I'm sure there are ways you and I can help each other out. I'm looking forward to chatting soon.